The following manifesto are the result of consultation, conferences, and meeting in Longapo City, Angeles City, Batangas City, Baguio City, Quezon Province, Cebu City, and Nueva Ecija. The conference in Cebu City was attended by national and regional leaders of Mrrd Necc from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Manifesto: launching a cultural revolution that is peaceful, harmless, and non-violent through a revolutionary government. Whereas our country had twice undergone revolution in the 18th and 19th century, all in the pursuit for freedom and better life. Our people succeeded triumphantly. Whereas our political culture of buying votes, politics of money and patronage, not politics of ideas and performance, have eroded our democratic principles and moral values. Our culture of corruption, by glorifying those involved in stealing the money of the people, had rendered our country underdeveloped and our people begging for assistance. Our culture of giggling at the misfortune and hardship of another next as godless. Our culture of dependence with others next as slaves of others. Our culture of indifference over the mistakes and wrongdoing of another next as mere onlookers of our moral degradation. Our culture of indecision and inaction without grace has eroded our justice system to the highest level. And our culture of colonial mentality has compromised our independence and sovereignty. This culture must go and end. Whereas President Rodrigo Roa Duterte is a man of honesty and integrity, his amount of political will is tremendous, which cannot be swayed by friendship and political patronage. His vision for our country is greatness and comfortable life for everyone. He is unstoppable when it comes to reform and socio-economic welfare and political being of our people. He is an epitome of change of our time. Whereas His Excellency Rodrigo Roa Duterte, the President of the Republic of the Philippines, ran in 2016 with the following advocacies: war against illegal drugs, against corruption, against criminality, against insurgency, against poverty, and most of all, the establishment of a new order, new system of government. His battle cry is federalism. Whereas in 2015, illegal drugs has already infected almost all the 42,046 barangays in the whole archipelago, close to rendering our country an narco state, and the victims are unfortunately the Filipino youth, the hope of the fatherland, as declared by Jose Rizal, our national hero. Kaawa-awa ang kabataang Pilipino, ang ating mga anak, ang ating mga apo, and the next generations to come. Whereas the President, on the day he assumed office, waged his war against illegal drugs, and today the government has cleared 15,000 barangays, more or less as drug-free, leaving 20,000 barangays, or more than 27,000 barangays, more or less, that are still struggling against this social menace which gradually destroy the future of the Filipino youth and the Filipino people themselves. The apparatus of illegal drug must therefore be destroyed, and its proliferation must be stopped by giving extraordinary powers to the President through a revolutionary government. Whereas the President, in his incessant desire to make our government corruption-free, how severe the services of erring members of the cabinet, undersecretaries, assistant secretaries, commissioners, head of offices and agencies, staff and regional directors, including men and women in uniform. But the culture of corruption continues and still persists in the government service. Whereas we are losing hundreds of billions of pesos due to corruption, affecting as it does the delivery of basic service to our people, most particularly the poor, whom we have to render service to our utmost. Galit po ang ating Pangulo sa kulturang ito. Aniya, kaawa-awa naman ang mga maralitang Pilipino, ang mga kabataan, ang mga manggagawa, ang mga magsasaka, ang mga mangingisda, ang may mga kapansanan at matatanda na dahil sa katiwalian ay nagkukulang ang serbisyo at mga benepisyo para sa kanila. Tulungan po natin ang mahal nating Pangulo na mapuksan ng buo ang suliraning ito with extraordinary powers. Whereas in 2015, our country ranked 95 among 168 countries based on the Annual Corruption Perception Index of Global Anti-Graft Watchdog Transparency International. The same organization reported that in 2019, our country ranked 113 as less corrupt nation out of 180 countries. This reduction is due to the incentive and clad iron campaign of the President, which must be sustained through a revolutionary government. Whereas the crime incidence is down by 79,647 or 14.02%, covering the period from 2017 to 2018. This figure is further down by 2.91% in 2019. This is due to the relentless law enforcement campaign of the government that ensures the safety and security of our people. Whereas the crime incidence in our country today is largely attributed to illegal drugs and the poverty of the significant segment of our population that the President is addressing since the time he assumed office. Undeniably, the Filipino propensity of taking the life of other people, of another to display machoism, is condemnable. Robbing one's property or placing the law into one's hand due to slow will of justice is another culture that must be reformed. Whereas the centuries-old insurgency caused by the issue of social injustice committed against the poor, the impoverished, and marginalized since the colonial era is causing the loss of the precious lives of our soldiers and policemen and the lives of the combatants against the government force, who are all Filipinos, is no longer bearable and should not be allowed to continue. Towards this end, the President is doing everything to put an end to the problem by promoting national reconciliation, peace talk that is characterized with all sincerity, honor, and patriotism. In the meanwhile, he is giving lands, shelters, and means of livelihood, education, and other social services to those who voluntarily return to the folds of law. Whereas the President's war against poverty is unprecedented. He is giving lands to the landless with support services under the Department of Agrarian Reform, providing free irrigation to our farmers, farm-to-market road, and other technical and financial support to the farmers and the fisher folks under the Department of Agrarian Reform, extending technical and financial assistance to entrepreneurs of small and medium enterprises, putting up economic zones and developing business ventures anywhere and everywhere in the country, wherever appropriate and feasible under the Department of Trade and Industry, implementing a massive infrastructure project and programs in land, sea, and air under the Department of Public Works and Highways and the Department of Transportation together. Providing easy access to information and communication under the Department of Communication Technology. Providing free college education under the Commission of Higher Education. Providing free technical vocational education and skills training under the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, otherwise known as TESDA. Creating jobs and means of livelihood under the Department of Labor and Employment. Providing independent foreign policies under the Department of Foreign Affairs. All these projects and programs can only be sustained by giving extraordinary powers to the President through a revolutionary government. Whereas the new coronavirus 19 has already crossed 44,000 infected persons with 11,000 recoveries and more than 1,000 deaths, which could have been higher if not of the timely imposition of lockdown and community quarantine. The virus might exist even at the end of 2020 and perhaps beyond. During such period, the President needs extraordinary powers to defeat the virus, which powers are not easy to come owing to the slow pace of legislation due to political intramurals and divisiveness. Ang sabi nila, aanuhin pa ang damo kung patay na ang kabayo. Whereas to our dismay, majority of our people could hardly observe simple protocols to avoid the transmission of COVID-19. This is due to lack of discipline. What happened to SAP, selection or beneficiaries, and the distribution of financial assistance is nothing but a clear manifestation of our lack of discipline. Ang sabi nila, disiplina ang kailangan upang mapayapa, maayos at maunlad ang ating pamumuhay. The most important campaign commitment of the President into 2016 is the establishment of a new political order which will lead to a new form of government through charter change that is suitable to the political temperament of our people as Mrrdicans. In the fulfillment of this commitment, the President created a constitutional committee which drafted a new constitution, which have been pending in Congress for consideration, but Congress as a whole deliberately fails us, ang taong bayan. Whereas equally important is the looming water which is real. As of today, almost 1,000 municipalities and more than 25,000 barangays don't have water works system which can provide potable water to our people. This can only be addressed by giving the President extraordinary powers through a revolutionary government. Whereas, similarly, climate change with which every Filipino has to adapt must be addressed effectively and efficiently. The erosion of our mountains due to irresponsible mining and the destruction of our forests due to illegal logging must be stopped. Setting climate change, which triggers earthquakes, storm, tsunami, volcanic eruption, drought, and other natural and man-made calamities must be given the highest preferential attention that it requires. This can be done by giving the President the extraordinary powers through revolutionary government. Whereas these 9-point national issues and concerns such as illegal drug, corruption, criminality, insurgency, poverty, water crisis, environmental crisis can ultimately be resolved starting with a revolutionary government and finally with a charter change. Unfortunately, we lost all other options. Wherefore, the Mrrd Necc a national organization that supported the President in 2016 presidential election, so demand that the President leaves his office only after he has succeeded in his war against illegal drugs, corruption, criminality, insurgency, poverty, including his solution to the looming water shortage and environmental crisis, and finally, until he has delivered his commitment for a charter change. We further urge the Filipino people to join us in the declaration of a peaceful, armless, and non-violent cultural revolution via the establishment of a revolutionary government for a period until 2022. Furthermore, we are urging the President to head the revolutionary government with his cabinet members of his choice and with the present Congress.